In this video example, we're going to focus on creating a multi-country interface. So we'll be offering the option to search in both the US and the UK on a single interface. So let's start with the data that we're going to import. We're going to import just some sample data. The first is going to be just some US locations, a small handful of US locations. And I'm going to replace all the data that I have in this test account. And let's just look at that data. Just a handful of records, 6 locations. One thing that's important to note is that we've been consistent about how we've labeled the country in this example data. So every time it says United States, it doesn't switch from United States to USA to US of A to U period S, etc., etc. It's very important that the country field actually contain consistent data. That's because eventually we'll create a drop-down list of countries, and we want to make sure that that drop-down list has unique values. So the other thing is that we've designated on each record the top-level domain, or TLD, of US. So in this case, we've specified the TLD appropriately for each record. So the next thing we want to do is import some UK locations. So I'll go back to my sample spreadsheets and I'll just pick this list of UK shops that we have. Now similarly, these have the TLD set, and in this case I'm going to append the data to my existing data. The TLD is set, and also the country is specified in a consistent way. So we've specified United Kingdom each time, as opposed to United Kingdom in one example and UK in the next record, etc., etc. So just be consistent with your country and TLD settings, and make sure that they have the correct and consistent values. So now that we have our data imported, I've already geocoded the data. So looking at all records, we can see that we've got everything green in the column off to the right. So the next thing we're going to do is build a new interface. So I'm just going to start with a default template and save that. And let's just take a look at what this looks like right off the bat. It's got our US locations and the UK locations. And so there are postal codes that exist in both the United States and non-US countries. For example, you can find, I think, 53202 in Germany, Italy, and the United States. And so it's important that when you search for a postal code, that MetaLocator knows what country you're looking for that postal code in. So that is to disambiguate the postal code search. And the way that we do that is by providing a drop-down list of available countries. And so the first option we'll do then is drag a list of countries over to our search options. So in our form settings, we have country drop-down. So we're just going to drag that over. Boop. And save. In the presence of a country dropdown, the postal code search will actually require that you specify a country before you click search. So if I just type in 53202 here, click submit, it will say, hey, you have to select a country. That allows us to disambiguate the search. So notice now we have United States here. So I'll hit submit, and there was nobody within that particular radius, but the search regardless was valid. So similarly, if I wanted to look in the UK for this postal code, I could do that and make sure that I pick the United Kingdom, click submit, and there we've got those results. So that is the two essential pieces of creating a multi-location interface. And so the country drop-down box is probably the most essential piece to that. One other option is that by default, the top-level domain that's used during the search is controlled by the interface settings, data settings. And so it'll essentially bias each search to the US. One other option that you want to change is that you should choose the TLD from the selected country as opposed to using just this single value. So what that does is it looks at every country in your database and looks at the top level domain that's specified for that country in your data, and makes sure that when a search is performed, it biases it using that particular TLD. So in this case, choose yes. Now, for users in New Zealand and Australia, sometimes the postal codes can get very difficult to disambiguate. And so this option biases the search based on the chosen TLD based on the country. The second option here actually forces the result to be included in the country selected and doesn't allow any deviation based on the postal code search. So in certain cases, especially Australia and New Zealand, that may be necessary. So, but however, in this case, the UK and US are pretty unambiguous. So it seems to work out just by setting that option. So those are the most essential pieces of creating a multi-country interface. Thanks.